I created a game where you play as the Avatar, controlling the 4 elements of water, earth, fire, and air, using AI, physics simulations, and combos so that you can chain them all together. If you're around my age, then you grew up loving Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a fascinating world where people control one of the 4 elements, depending on their tribe. This control of the elements that they call bending is used for work, sports, but most importantly, for fighting. And each of the elemental tribes has a different philosophy and personality that affects their fighting style. However, there's one special individual known as the Avatar who can bend all 4 elements with the sole purpose of bringing balance to the world. No, he's not a Jedi. And this is all in a story that's supposed to be meant for kids, but is easily enjoyable today, even as an adult. And apparently it was based on a cartoon. I don't know, I just watched the movie.
My name is Ong, and I'm the Avatar.
And despite the popularity of this franchise, there aren't really too many games about it. The first episode premiered over 20 years ago, and yet there's only 9 PC or console games listed on the wiki. There's more than that on the wiki, but they're like Fortnite and Nickelodeon. Wait a second, was that real 20 years ago? That's a real stat. Holy shit, I'm old. And again, despite the brimming potential for a banger video game, none of these games really stand out as good. The most recent one being Avatar: Quest for Balance, which has an impressive 4.3 on Metacritic and mostly negative on Steam. This franchise obviously deserves a lot better than that. So I set out to make a game where you truly feel like the Avatar, bending all 4 elements and giving The Last Airbender a great game. Did I do that? Probably not, but this is how it went. Okay, so I'm thinking that we just do like this big arena, wide open arena where a bunch of enemies come from around you, and then you just have to beat them all up. You know, keep it simple. And for that, we're gonna need an arena. While I could go through the whole process of 3D modeling and texturing and UV mapping and importing that into the game engine, I won't, because that's kind of boring. And also, I didn't do any of that. I just downloaded this arena off the asset store and I called it a day. Remember kids, a good artist creates, a great artist steals. So now we have our empty arena, and using Unity's default first-person character, we can run around and jump in this arena. That's a good start, but now we need the enemies that we're gonna beat up. So I went on Mixamo and browsed some of the characters that they have. I mostly use Mixamo for the tons of animations that they have, but in addition to that, they also have a ton of unique characters that you can use too. And all of these character models are completely compatible with the animations that they have, which just makes everything a lot easier. So after some browsing, I landed on this red sorcerer looking guy. I mean, he looks like he can be an evil firebender, right? And after importing our bad guy with a couple of animations, I had to program some simple AI stuff, you know, just to get him to follow the player around and walk around. You know, super easy stuff. Motherfucker. Yeah, fuck, you know what? That's not even what it... Oh my... One of the things I had to do when implementing the AI was navigation pathfinding. This is just a big word that basically means if the AI is over here and needs to get over there, what path is it going to take? And if you're thinking, well, isn't that just a straight line? Then congratulations, you win a free coupon that allows you to like this video. And it expires in 5 seconds, so you better do it now. So yes, a straight line is the shortest, most efficient path to 2 destinations. But what if there's a rock in the way? Or a wall? Or a maze? That's when finding the path becomes a little bit more complicated than just a straight line. This is why AI enemies need pathfinding, an algorithm that finds the best path to a destination while avoiding obstacles along the way. And while I could explain the A-star pathfinding algorithm that our firebenders use, I won't, because that's just kind of boring. And is that the only reason? Yeah, but I also didn't really do it. That's what I thought. Alright, shut up! Unity, the game engine that I'm using, already has this A-star pathfinding built in, so it makes it super easy to get AI enemies to move from point A to point B while avoiding obstacles. Game development is actually pretty easy. Motherfucker. motherfucker. The good thing right now is that our arena is totally empty, so the pathfinding's a lot easier to do right now.
But we don't want things to be easy for them, and the empty arena is too boring, so we have to spice things up a bit. So I went back to the asset store and grabbed these free rocks. And after putting a bunch of rocks in the arena, it looks a lot better than it did when it was empty. Plus, it adds some extra cover for when the firebenders can actually attack us. But we'll get to that later. Right now, they just run at you menacingly. And our pathfinding seems to be doing just fine since they aren't getting stuck on any rocks.
The last thing we'll need to do for our firebenders is add physics. I wanted the bending powers to be fun and somewhat realistic, so physics is a great candidate for this. Now, the good part about physics is that they're cool, fun, and realistic. The bad part about physics is that it can sometimes make your computer sound like an old PS4 starting up. So we're gonna have to cut some corners unless we want the game to look like a fucking slideshow. One method I used to make the physics calculations easier was to make all the enemies rigid bodies. This just means that, for physics purposes, the enemies don't squish or bend at all. Squishy physics are a lot more realistic and satisfying, but they are way harder to calculate for the game. And honestly, we just don't really need them that bad. And another thing we'll do to simplify the physics is to keep the hitboxes simple. The visible character model is very complex with a lot of triangles and joints and shapes, but that doesn't mean that the physics have to be just as complex. Let me explain. For physics purposes, we'll use a basic capsule shape for the firebenders. The simpler the shape, the easier it is for the game engine to do the physics simulations and collisions. This is why hitboxes are usually, well, boxes. Most competitive games use a lot of boxes to kind of cover each limb of the person, but for our firebenders, just to keep it simple, we're just going to do one big capsule around them. But again, this is only for physics. The player can't actually see this, so the visible character model can be very complex, while the invisible physics can be pretty simple. You get the best of both worlds. So that about wraps it up for the firebending enemies. Now we can start creating the bending powers for the player, starting with air. This one is pretty straightforward. You push a gust of wind and it makes the firebender stumble back and stunned a little bit. This is done by shooting a bunch of lines in front of the player, and if it hits a firebender, then it pushes them back and stuns them. The next power is earth, and for that I created this chunk of earth that rises up and pops the enemy into the air, also stunning them for a little bit. And for this I just whipped up a quick 3D model for the game that matches the ground so it looks like it's the same earth coming up. See, I can do real game dev, like I'm an artist. So when you press the mouse, this piece of earth just hovers below the ground, and then when you let it go, it rises up. And because our enemies are equipped with physics, they get popped up in a pretty satisfying way. Alright, and next up is fire. And to me, this one was a no-brainer. We have to have a fireball. And for this, I used some of Unity's particle effects and created a nice little fireball. And while I was at it, I also made this the firebender's main attack too, since, you know, they're firebenders. And lastly, by the time I got to water, I realized I didn't really have a way to just punch enemies in the face. And you don't have to know too much about game development to know that water is pretty tough to get right. So of course I leave the most basic and essential attack to the hardest thing to do, and it was challenging, but here's what I came up with. I followed this tutorial on YouTube to create these little water pellets. It just takes a basic sphere and then uses a shader to make it transparent, wiggly, and a little bit reflective. So this one little pellet looks nice, but we're gonna need a lot more than that to create a whole water-based attack. Well, not really actually. See, when the pellet moves, it just spawns a bunch of pellets behind it. This creates a nice little trail effect that sort of resembles what we see from the water bending in The Last Airbender. And I don't really think I nailed the look, but I think it's good enough. So now, using this, you can slash water in front of you and punch enemies. So now that we finally have all 4 elements and enemies to beat them up with, now it's just time to add some finishing touches.
I added this little glide effect as part of your airbending. See, you can pop up enemies with the earth power, but you could also do it to yourself. So now once you pop yourself up, if you jump again in the air, you'll start gliding. I also made it so that if you punch a fireball with your water, then it fizzles out and gets blocked. Then I added some sound effects to give everything some pizzazz. And I gave the game a simple main menu with a cool little animation of our Avatar character doing his thing.
And so now finally, here's how the game Avatar POV turned out. Honestly, I've had a lot of fun making and playing this game. It does get a little bit repetitive after a while because you're just fighting the same enemies in just a wide open space, but I think it could be a lot more fun if there was a little bit more enemy variety, but using the bending powers does feel pretty good to me at least. And as usual with these things, I kind of just ran out of time to add more enemies and more bending powers and stuff. I was working on a little other earth power where you kick up like a big piece of rock and then shoot it in front of you, sort of like Toph does. But like I said, I just ran out of time. So let me know in the comments below if you want me to update this game with more stuff later. Like I said earlier, this world, this franchise, has just so much potential for a banger video game, so I just thought I'd throw my hat in the ring and give it my best shot. Also, let me know in the comments below what other bending powers I should have included. I think maybe like a lightning, ultimate fire bending power would be cool. I think just ultimate in general would have been cool, but yeah, anyway, like I said, this world has so much potential for cool stuff to put in this game. Obviously, I can't do it all, but I'd love to come back to this and maybe add some of that cool stuff. Oh my god, you can do metal bending too? See, there's just so much potential, but anyway, I gotta cut myself off. But thank you for watching this video. Leave a like if you liked it, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ. New man. Alright. I created a game where you play as AI, No, you don't. What? Ugh. This is why I don't record videos in the morning.